Hello and welcome. Silrace here with some World of Tanks. This is KV-1S and now I'm not going to really do commentary on the gameplay going on at the background because I just want to talk about the tank and such because, well, this tank is right now being changed in the upcoming 9.3 patch and this is still 9.2 footage. I have to actually rebuy this tank. Let's be honest, I have to rebuy this thing and you'll notice in the gameplay that I do not have 6 cents because I originally sold this tank as soon as I finished grinding open every single tech line it led to, and then I just sold it. And now just a little bit ago when I saw all the notes for the 9.3 changes and all that stuff, I rebought this tank just to play a few games with it. Because I am a kind of person who likes to take, well, bad things and make them work for me. Essentially worse tanks and all that stuff. I am not one to, oh, this tank is OP and you see millions of them every single day. I don't usually play tanks like that. Or anything like that when I happen to be playing a game. That's just how I roll. Anyways, let's talk about the KV-1S and why some of the nerfs are coming in. Frankly, in the game itself it performs a little weirdly and it's being replaced by the more historically accurate KV-85. Because, well, KV-1S did not carry the 122mm gun in the, well, real world. I don't think there was a single one of those developed ever. I mean, wasn't it the IS, like IS-1 or whatnot, which carried the 100mm and 122mm guns, whereas the KV-85 and the well, KV-1S carried the smaller things, the 76 and 85mm guns. Now, let's forget the history bit for a moment because I can't for the life of me remember if I'm correct at this anyway. Anyways, let's skip past that and let's talk about some gameplay and why I personally think these nerfs are overdue in such a way that the KV-1S was really dominant in the hands of, well, absolute bad players, and really good players could abuse it even more harshly. That was, I guess, the issue, because it was a tank which could perform very well for pretty much anyone. I mean, 810 health and you have 390 average alpha damage. You essentially just need to fire 2 shells and you have done your own HP in damage in whatever game. And 390 alpha, that is enough to basically one-shot tier 4 tanks, like I think every single tier 4 tank in the game, and many of the tier 5 tanks even, especially the tier 5 tank destroyers were completely outdone by a tier 6 heavy tank. I mean, heavy tanks are supposed to carry a bit heavier gun, that's fine with me, but this was always a little bit overkill. The fact that it was also attached to a platform which had, well, kinda bad armor. It's kinda like, it's okay armor against like tier 4s and bad tier 5s from the front, but on the sides and rear it was really easy to penetrate. However, the problem is that platform was agile and pretty fast. So it was not that easy to get to the sides and rear without it being able to maneuver with you or even to try to hide from you behind a building or whatnot. Slow rate of fire on the 122mm, so essentially if you got tracked out in the open or whatnot, you did get blow to beds every single time against anyone who was competent enough. But it was that massive fear factor of being able to one-shot tier 4 tanks and majority of the tier 5 tanks, and most of the tier 6 tanks it also faced just get crippled by it. The other fun thing though is, because of the 175mm of penetration on the gun, you could actually do pretty well in tier 8 games by simply being a threat to tier 8 tanks as well. Not something all the tier 6 tanks can boast, especially from the front. So it's overall a combination of things. Personally, that gun is uninspiring. In all honesty, if you smack that gun it has on a slower platform, on less agile platform, it suddenly is not such a big deal. However, when you slap it on an agile, kind of agile tank with okayish armor, then yeah, it becomes a problem. Especially when you give that tank 8 degrees of gun depression, which is almost American level of gun depression on a Soviet tank. And is just bollocks to me. So it's kind of a big deal of having a lot of really good stats poured into one single machine. And for this reason it performed really well in the hands of absolute beginners, and like I said, really good players could abuse the heck out of it by taking advantage of every single thing for it. Personally, I always found T150 much more enjoyable to play, but that's just a personal thing. I mean, everyone loves KV-2 because of how silly it is with the 152mm derp gun, but I mean, that's an entirely different beast in essence, because that thing is much harder to control, and yeah, it's a slower machine. The KV-1S had the massive fear factor of being a combination of good stats. So now it's being replaced by the KV-85 Tier 6 with -3 degrees of gun depression, which is worse than the Chinese ones who already can basically just shoot at planes. So this one is going to shoot at the moon, and that's pretty much it. And yeah, that's going to be funny. Of course, KV-1S is going to become a Tier 5 heavy tank with a worse gun. Much worse gun, actually. Also, the 122mm gun on the KV-85 is going to see some massive nerfs. So that gun is also being gutted quite bad. I think this is a bit of an over nerf to it. I mean, you could have just left the gun as is and nerfed the tank in many other ways, just putting it on a slower platform and whatnot. Could have worked a little bit better for game balance purposes and whatnot. I really honestly don't know if that is the case. Anyway, I think this is enough about talking of KV-1S. In 9.2 patch, it is still a really prominent tank. You see them all over the place and it's really good. I can't wait to see what happens in the 9.3, because all of these guys who have the tanks like, wait, no, KV-85, this must be as OP, and then they go out there and try it out and figure, well, this doesn't work quite as well because the combination of stats is not as good anymore. Or then they read forums or whatnot and someone says that it's bad, and then everyone stops playing it because that's the mass hysteria or whatever thingamajig where when someone says that this tank is garbage or this tank is OP, that decides whether people play it or don't play. Pretty much. Anyways, of course I am, you know, being not quite reasonable here with some assumptions. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you folks another time.